Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining today. We are at the LawHelp Interactive bi-monthly call, and today we have a guest panelist, Adam Stofsky from Briefly. Before we get started, just the general reminder that we'll be recording and posting the call in our YouTube channel so you can watch it later on. And we're gonna start the call today focusing on who went to ITC and then sharing on workshops. Adam is gonna cover his workshop, which was one of my favorite ones, that it was focusing on content and content strategies. So I'll share that, I'll give him the floor. And then I'm hoping that after he's done, some of you who went or maybe didn't go but heard some buzz about other workshops, you can share what you've heard, because there was a lot covered at the conference and everything is available for recording. And then I'm gonna get into internal LHI topics and reminders and requests, including March code push and other updates about the A to J author forms will retire and inbox support issues, and then opening it up for next steps. I have with me is also Mark Lauritsen and Jessica from Cali. So they're also here as panelists in case anybody has questions. So we'll get started. So with the ITC conference, they have it online and they're leaving every recording up until June, until the end of June. So you have time if you want to watch some of these or others that you've heard about. Now, I do believe that they do have a $49 fee to access the full library. I think that you can get up to 50 videos. But you know, some of you may have gone, so maybe it's part of your regular registration to have access to this. And if you want to kind of see what was going on in the Twitter world or social media, the hashtags were this. So it may be interesting for you to kind of watch the video and then see, you know, what was being tweeted about the video, because there was a lot of really good commentary and activity, some of it fun. A lot of it people really adding context to how it was helpful to them. So just check it out. So I'm gonna just kick us off with my favorites and why. I'm not gonna steal the thunder from Adam. He is with Briefly Studios, and it's a company that he is the ED or CEO. And he creates content strategies, helps with marketing materials, does video, and has done a lot of training, legal training process type videos at every level, either for pro bono lawyers or for self-represented. And he'll tell you a little bit more about it. But I really loved his workshop because it really focused around how it's not just the technology, it's also the content and what are the goals of what you're trying to achieve, and really kind of taking a really intentional approach that if you're going to put out a technology out there to help people minimize pains, that you also think about how you're gonna cradle them through the process, because in a lot of ways that's what we have to do. It's kind of gently guide them so that they don't get lost or frustrated, or worse, they don't do what they need to do and then they get a default or something. So the closing plenary was great, and it was moderated by Jason Tasha. He interviewed 4 people. My favorite part of that is that they said that remote is here to stay, and that's what I really love to hear, because remote should have been here to stay in 2012, but hey, better late than never. So you want to check it out. He had different folks from different parts of the legal aid community talking about what they thought the future would be. But remote is here to stay was something that came up over and over, and the fact that the plenary said it for once, it's really good to hear. It's reassuring. The plenary discussion was moderated by Ron Flagg, who is the lead at LSC, and they had a guest speaker, Larry Irvin, and he really broke down the digital divide. And he gave really good statistics, and he really talked very clearly about how the digital divide is no longer just a digital divide, it's a healthcare divide, it's an employment divide, it's really almost a human rights divide, and how we have to work together to bridge that, because it is also part of closing, you know, the justice problem. If people don't have access to online, they're not going to be having access to anything that we think of or dream of. And then another one that I loved was from Dream to Game Changer, and it was a Wisconsin project that I love the approach because they hire an academic to help them plan and design the project and the goals and the theory of change and all that way before they wrote the business requirements for the technology group. And so for me, it was, seeing the well thought out approach so that when you put out an RFP, you know what you want and you know who you're building it for. And you may want to check that one out. It was really a great panel and something that we do here at Pro Bono Net, but it was really nice to see how somebody else approaches it using some of the same planning approaches. Leveraging online forms in the era of COVID-19. This was a pre-recorded one that Miranda did with Rita Baldino and our partners in Michigan, Ladridi McKinney. It was fabulous. The recordings have the chats up, so I encourage you to look at the chat because you can see all the questions people were asking as the recording was going on and how they were being answered. I think some of the chats are already open and some of them are closed. So I encourage you to look at the chat on this because it was very active and had a lot of really good information. And then there was the one that was done by Joanna from Just Fix. And it was, friendly pathways to justice in New York. And she talked about, how they came at this from a real complete, not just looking at one form, but looking at the whole tenant empowerment perspective and how they are doing online forms in the context of New York for repairs, really looking at it as a whole journey and not coming at it like as lawyers, saying these are your rights, but really just giving people the tools that they need right there, really actionable on the spot, including a form. So those were my favorite. We'll transition to Adam, and I'm gonna switch screens. Adam.
Yeah, it always takes me a while to figure out go to webinar. I'm a Zoom person myself.
Okay.
Hang on, is this my screen? No. Oh, whoa.
So
there we
I
go.
just
Sure.
made you presenter.
Okay. Show my screen. Screen 2. Okay. Bear with me, folks. Can you see my slide?
Yes.
We do.
Okay. Okay, great. So I sort of just threw together a few slides from a few different decks, including our ITC deck. So apologies if they're a bit all over the place. Also, I should say hi to our Callie friends. Callie is one of Briefly's much loved clients and partners. So it's great to see you guys here. So I'm just gonna kind of really quickly, since it's a small group, may as well kind of make it a conversation. So I'll just quickly blow through a bit about what Briefly does and kind of give you the core of what we talked about at our ITC panel. And Claudia, you just stop me, please, if I'm not hitting the points I want you to hit. And I think I'm going to be coming at this really, since we only have a few minutes, really more as an advocate for content strategy and testing, more than giving you a huge amount of information about how to do it, because it's a short period of time. But we'll dive right in. First of all, what is Briefly? So Briefly is a social enterprise whose mission is to make legal information more accessible. That's pretty much what we do. I'm just sort of going through some various screenshots of legal videos that we've done. We do this in really primarily 3 different ways. One is we produce custom legal content for legal aid organizations, courts, some law firms, A to J organizations. This is a screenshot from a set of videos we just released with the New York courts for their new ODR system. This is from a video on fair housing with Legal Aid of North Carolina. This is our now somewhat famous character Clark, who we developed for South Carolina Legal Services, and a video on some disaster legal issues. So we produce custom content like this. We also train legal organizations and lawyers to make better online content, to kind of be better, digital communicators in this pandemic environment. And 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 now as Claudia said, in this much more remote, permanently more remote environment, we also produce legal resources we produce our own legal resources to basically help people navigate various legal issues, particularly around major life events. That work is not directly relevant to this, but it's also pretty interesting. So that's who we are. We produce a lot of content, mostly through grants from legal aid organizations and courts. And one thing that I've seen, and I'm sure some of you have seen this too, to the extent you've worked on content projects, is that very often the funding is largely to make stuff, right? You get some funding to make a bunch of videos or to, produce some, produce a set of PDFs or brochures or know your rights materials, whatever, right? So all the money goes to the content, this stuff here. And nothing in particular goes to marketing. How do you actually get it to the people who need to see it? Or to testing. How do you know if it actually works? and so I put this little simple slide here because to me, when you're producing any kind of content, it's just absolutely critical that you give equal time and resources to marketing and testing. In fact, probably even more, right? And you see this, if any of you worked in the tech world, in the private sector, I mean, the amount of resources that goes to testing. I mean, in many ways, the ethic is to spend as little on your product as you need to before you get it out there and start marketing it, even selling it, and testing it, and then slowly iterating on that content. We tend not to do that in the nonprofit sector. I think largely because of the way projects tend to be funded. So, but that's what we see. And so just to quickly go through, now getting into some of our slides from the ITC, what is content strategy? If people want to unmute, you want to kind of have a little guess here. Are people able to unmute, Claudia? All right, well then I'll just...
I unmuted everyone and everybody's muted locally now. So folks, if you want to interject, go ahead.
And any guesses of these three? What's the definition of content strategy?
Okay, C.
No, okay. Oh yeah. C. Any other guesses? Okay, good, because the answer is C. It's just the planning, development, and management of content, right? It's that simple. It's not specific to social media. It's not the materials itself. It's the actual strategy. And what's UX? Sorry, my slides went a little bonkers here. So sorry, but I'm supposed to be the visual design guy giving you a slide. Anyway, what's the answer? What is user experience?
A?
Yeah, it's A. Exactly, right? It's not the planning, it's not data, it's just what is the interaction? What is literally what is the experience a user has? And I'm sure a lot of you know this as people working with a technology, a technology product with forms. But it's critically important that with all of our content we think about user experience. And I think that the way I think about it is like essentially content and content strategy is completely can you guys still hear me? I'm getting a weird alert about my internet. Anyway, if you have any issues, drop it in the chat and let me know.
No, fine.
Content or okay, good. Content and content strategy without attention to user experience is completely, it's pointless, really. You need to know if what you're doing is actually working. If people are learning from what you're putting out there, if they're engaging with it, it seems obvious to say it, right? When you make something, you need to make sure it gets there. Marketing, you need to make sure it works. Testing and user experience, but most projects don't work that way. And I think it requires a lot of kind of debate and education of funders and and executive directors that this is really important. You can't just make the final product. So this is my colleague Shira, who is a content strategist at Netflix and now at Coursera, who is my co-panelist at the ITC, came up with this framework of how to create really great content. And what I love about this, I'm not going to go through every point here, but these 4 major steps: define your learning goals, define metrics, create content, and measure. So the thing I love about this is that create content is third out of the 4 steps, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you don't, and the creating includes, a lot of the planning and the scripting, everything. Before you even get to that, you need to define what you're trying to learn through your testing. define the metrics that you're going to kind of determine if you sort of met those learning goals. And only then do you make the content, and then you measure. And then what there should be is like a nice arrow back from measure into, define learning goals and create content, because it's an ongoing process, right? So, I always try to break down, whenever we do a content project, we break down what are our content goals, right? So with legal aid organizations, where folks were embedding videos into sort of, we do a lot of creating videos for things like intake systems, which is really similar to forms, really. So you define your content goals. Like, what are your actual ultimate goals, right? You want to educate people. You want them to, maybe you want folks to take a much shorter time to go through the intake process, or feel satisfied or more satisfied if they get rejected and don't qualify for legal services. Maybe you're doing pro se unrepresented litigant materials. You want to reduce the default judgment rate in consumer debt cases in your jurisdiction. Whatever your actual, what is your substantive goal for putting this content out there? And then you have your learning goal, which is a completely different thing. Your learning goal is, what do you want to learn from the next iteration of this content? What do you want to learn? Does length matter? Does mobile versus, kind of a desktop or laptop matter? What about language access? Does that matter? Representation of kind of characters, whatever, the size of the type, anything. You just have to define a learning goal. And I think just like having any learning goal is just have one. And just like with marketing and distribution, just have a marketing and distribution channel to start. You got something, you're already way, way ahead of the game. So I'm going to stop there for a sec before I go into my last little thing. Claudia, did I compress our hour long?
Yeah, and I think that, for me, this, like, you can watch the full video at the ITC site, but this discussion here was really gold. And I'm gonna ask you a question kind of from a different perspective, going to the technology mantra in Agile, do it and fail fast. This approach where you're like defining the goals and the metrics ahead of time, so that by the time you come and create the content, which is gonna be coded or some sort of tech artifact, may seem as if it is orthogonal to fail fast. Any comments or thoughts on that?
Yeah, actually, I'll just say it's interesting. I mean, in a way, this is a kind of simplified version of Agile for content, right? Not for software. Agile has like a lot of has some kind of baggage that comes with it.
Yeah, because it says no documentation, right? One of the Agile things is that there's gonna be no documentation.
Exactly.
Or little,
so like,
right? And like this could be seen, yeah.
Yeah, I think yes. So I agree with that, though. I think fail fast. I don't know if that's exactly analogous to the world of legal content specifically, because when you're building software, well, let me take a second to really think about this. I think failure with, and I'm not a tech person, so you guys can all correct me if I'm wrong here. I think failure with software is a little more cut and dry than failure or success with content. I think, like, if an app just doesn't work, or it's too slow, or it's confusing, that stuff might be like a little more objective than, the extent to which people engage with or respond to content, or kind of respond to calls to action in the content. So I don't know if you can have quite that same fail fast approach. It's a subtle difference. It's more of like just iterate fast and learn as much as you can, and learn to distinguish between what is objective and subjective, right? So like an objective measure will be under defined metrics, you see info gained, right? So this is like, you can test after you show someone any kind of content. It could be just a PDF, but just quiz them afterwards on actual factual questions. What is the definition of no fault divorce, for example, or whatever and you can learn objectively, are people actually retaining information from this? So that's objective. But other stuff about like how people feel when they see like this Clark character, this guy right here that we use with our South Carolina videos. We've just learned anecdotally over the years that people respond to this character really well, and the fact that he/she can be thrown into lots of different costumes and look like lots of people people respond to really well. But that's ultimately like pretty subjective, and your goal as a kind of content strategist is to figure out how to maximize the impact on your audience to the extent possible. Whereas so I think it's a little different from fail fast in the software context, but animated by the same idea of rapid iteration. Did that make sense? Was that a satisfying answer, Claudia? That makes sense, that distinction?
Yeah, I'm wondering what our audience thinks,
Yeah,
whether
I'm
they
curious
see
too.
it.
Do you guys buy that distinction?
No, no hands raised or anything.
Well, that's right.
Okay.
Still time. Feel free to jump in. So let me just quickly wrap this up with just a gentle pitch here. If I can get my deck working again. Right. So our company briefly has launched a new training program and subscription service for primarily for legal aid organizations, courts, A to J folks, but other lawyers as well. Our insight was that to produce custom and multimedia content's quite expensive, and usually you have to have a special grant to do it. But lots of organizations are doing this and want to be doing it better. So we kind of took the success of our webinars and wrapped it into a year-long ongoing kind of training and support program for legal organizations. So we have this cool subscription service right on our website, which I think Claudia can send the URL around. And it's 8 training sessions over the course of a year on all kinds of cool topics like planning and strategy, user testing, for example, visual design, making better screencasts, audio, accessibility, language access. It's all included in this. And we also do office hours, which are kind of like a group coaching, consulting. Where you can ask questions and kind of get feedback from your peers. Actually, I have one tomorrow, which is kind of exciting. And it's only $2,000 a year for an entire organization, right? So if you work at a court and you sign up, like everyone employed by that court can come to the training. So it's pretty high value. So if you're interested in learning about content creation or kind of integrating it in, but aren't ready to take a deep dive and kind of do a big project, this is a great option. We just launched last week. We had about 70 people at our first training, and it was a blast. It was a kind of nuts and bolts strategy session on how to build a strong content creation program in your organization. So anyway, I encourage you all to check it out.
And I'm gonna try to put on the chat too. Adam does a lot of training with other networks. So like he did an amazing training about being heard and understood, where he was just basically really sharing how to think about sound and lighting and all that, and how if your sound is not coming out clear, people may be making negative or even punitive assumptions about your intelligence or your ability. I think that the cat video, the lawyer cat video, really showed a very kind approach to technical issues, in this case by an educated person with a JD, right? The person was a lawyer, so the bench gave the lawyer a lot of bandwidth to figure out what was going on with the kitty cat. But really, Adam has done some trainings where he really makes the point on how important the quality of sound can be, the lighting, and now that we're going remote, things that all of us that are supporting the people without lawyers should be really thinking about in terms of supporting the capacity of people to come across well and not to have any implicit bias assigned to them. So I'm gonna put that in the chat because it's recorded, and I thought it was a really amazing conversation that you had. I don't remember who else was the co-panelist, but it was SRLN.
Yeah, that was through Voices for Civil Justice and SR, but they're open to everyone. We just advertise them through SRLN and Voices. So yeah, if you'd like to learn about our free webinars, you can sign up for our mailing list. And Claudia, I can send a little sign up form to you. You can circulate. But yeah, we have
Okay.
we're gonna do that. We're gonna do that being heard and understood. That was with our voice team with 2 voice actors, kind of coaching people on how to the technical aspects of sounding better, but also the kind of performative. And then we're going to do that one again later this year, a free webinar, and it's also a deeper dive was included in the Briefly Now service. And our next free webinar is going to be in a few weeks, and it's on accessibility and of content. So making your content inclusive for everyone. We have the it looks like we're going to have the head of sort of accessibility technology at NBC Universal joining to kind of talk about the cutting
Oh,
edge of
nice.
It's really going to be really great.
Yeah,
So,
that sounds. Yeah, send those to
yeah,
me and I can circulate to the list. But I put here the one that I was mentioning being heard and understood. I think, I mean, this is not necessarily particularly to forms, but it's like if somebody's gonna be showing up after filing and doing a remote appearance, it's something to help set up the place where they're gonna be doing it or help them get set up so that the person on the other end is not making all sorts of calculations based on a position of privilege or something else. So check it
yeah.
out. It was
Well,
really good.
thanks, Claudia. But I think actually, like, I mean, this is a much deeper conversation to have, but I think that that just screencasts are really underutilized in the forms world, just because forms just lend themselves to explaining complex things on screens. And there's so many cool things we can do with with screen using Camtasia or ScreenFlow that would be really, really great. And all that is just requires good audio. So anyway, feel free to sign up for it. We have all this free stuff coming up, so feel free to sign up. All will be, I think, really useful.
Okay. Well, thank you. Any comments or questions from the audience? Everybody should be unmuted locally.
Hey, Claudia, this is Mark. I've got a question for Adam.
Okay.
I'm curious what your thoughts are about situations where you're not presenting content, but eliciting content from a user. So, for instance, a domestic violence scenario, right, where we're trying to help somebody file a petition for a restraining order, and we need to elicit from them their narrative. Are there any ways in which you can flip kind of the good practices you've described for the scenarios where you're trying to pull out of a user what their content is, their story?
That's a big question, Mark. Let me ask you a clarifying question. Do you mean how to kind of get their story out and then kind of record it into a piece of content to kind of, or do you mean just generally how to communicate with them and how to kind of draw out their
I know we have Lori on this call from Washington State and others who are doing this, but the most immediate concrete scenarios where you need to construct a narrative to be included in an application for an order. And so you're trying to guide somebody through telling their story without prepping them in a way that makes it seem artificial. Yeah, I can't be much more specific than that.
No, that's a great question. So I think I'll give a two-part answer. So I think from my perspective, what you're getting at there is more the skill set of a documentary film producer, right? Which I used to do for about a decade in my last organization. Who are trying to ask questions that are kind of they're sort of like good direct examination questions, right? Where you're trying to direct a story but make it seem like you're not, right?
Yeah.
So I think I have to think about the best resources on this. I would, especially for lawyers who are doing this, focus more on the doc filmmakers, particularly like someone like Alex Gibney, who is just extraordinary at doing just this, like he just gets people to tell their stories in this very open and engaging way, and they don't even realize they're digging in Alex's case, they're like digging a hole for themselves, but in the case of our clients, they're just telling a really compelling story. So I guess that's my very, very quick answer is, and it also kind of brings content into this and storytelling is this documentary film kind of method of question. Is that helpful, Mark, at all?
It is, yeah. No, I'm just kind of raising it as a general idea because I think we often think about how we push stuff out to people, but at least in the form automation world, we also need to pull things in.
Yeah, you're getting it.
Yeah.
We did a video.
Oh, sorry.
Just super quick.
Okay.
Oh no, go Claudia. You go.
No, what I was gonna say is that I believe from the Australia group, they did a really amazing report about what works and doesn't work online. And they were actually reporting that when you say people, hey, are you like Maria or are you like Carlos or are you like Matthew, that presenting a story to compare themselves against so that they can pick a path in a technology tool, that didn't work. And I was really blown away by that because we've been thinking for the past 5 to 8 years that if we present a story, hey, this is Matthew, he's doing this, he has kids. Yeah. Apparently that's not that helpful. at least in the Australian context, but I thought, wow, that really blew me away, because then that made me think, well, then if we're soliciting a parenting plan, like what is your, do you split the holidays? What do you do on Thanksgiving? How do we elicit that if not using a story that may really overwhelm people or turn them off, because they're like, oh, that guy Matthew, he has it easy. He hasn't met my wife, or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, so being really thoughtful about the questions or the stories that we put out so that people can relate, and then we elicit what we want rather than just completely losing them. So I thought that was interesting.
It doesn't, hearing it, because people are kind of not that self-aware, actually. They don't recognize themselves.
Yeah, in other people. Yeah.
It's interesting. Yeah. I wonder now if actually, we had thought about including kind of documentary style production interviewing as one of our Briefly Now topics. So we decided not to, because, it's a pandemic, so it's hard to do that sort of thing, at least in person. But, Mark, you're making me think it could be a good topic to have in a, maybe next year, because it is really relevant. You're right, both to telling a good story, but also soliciting information in an authentic way. So no, really good question.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, something to note all about. Yeah.
I was going to note, we produced a cool video with South Carolina Legal Services a while back on, it was advice on how to testify in a protective order hearing for survivors of violence. And it was actually, this is tangentially relevant, but it's like, it was instructing them actually how to tell their story in court, which was, very specific set of, advice. And the video was actually kind of funny. Quite funny, actually. It used a lot of like solidarity humor in a way, which was we considered a big risk at the time, given the obvious tough subject. But it's been a huge success, in encouraging people to, focus on the actual facts, right? Don't tell the judge every little detail, and kind of, try to keep your cool. And it's the basic stuff you'd say to prep a witness. But what's interesting is how, encouraging people to just kind of be authentic, be minimalist in their storytelling, and then using some kind of humor to almost jab at our predilections to say everything or to get upset. It was very interesting. So I can send that around if you're interested in seeing it.
Yeah, that would be great. Okay. Anything else from anyone before we let Adam go? No. Well, check out. Thank you, Adam, and check out the recording if you have access, and see the full workshop. It was truly wonderful, and I think that some of this is really helpful in the context of online forums too. So connect with Adam and join the Voices list, because he's been doing trainings with them, and check out the Being Heard and Understood, which was also a wonderful workshop that he did. And I really appreciate your time, my friend.
No, thanks. Always a pleasure, Claudia. And I'll send a little sign up around too. You can circulate if folks want to just get the announcements for webinars directly.
Claudia, okay. This is Pat Muller in South Carolina.
Hey, Pat.
Hi, Pat.
Hey, how are you?
Good. Thanks for being here.
Yes, I came in a little bit late, but I've been out of touch for a couple of months. I'm trying to play catch up on automated forms, and I know Adam has worked with Sue and her group for the online classrooms. We are in another area now where our advocates are wanting to create automated forms outside of the court forms. And Claudia, your name was given to me, but I know Adam, I'm not sure whether this is your bailiwick, but we're not really sure which way to go with this. And Claudia, Kenneth has created all of the standard hot doc forms for the courts, but our advocates are saying we want other forms that are automated, where they can just pull from a library of forms and create a packet for a client, a in-house client. Do you all have any idea where I need to start, or where we need to go to maybe talk with someone about assisting us, even contractually, maybe to create these forms that these advocates have presented, that they won't automate it.
Do you mean in a like any particular platform, Pat, or just form?
They only thought about hot docs. Jane at LSC talked about doc assembly, symbols, something like that. I'm not sure exactly where to go with this, because that's something they're wanting to do, particularly because nowadays they're not having as many support staff. And so creating these court complaints, she was saying, you know, like complaints, you could customize it to your client. This is for internal forms. This is to create internal automated forms.
Yeah, but I can connect with you one-on-one to understand more what the lawyers want, because I don't know if they don't want to be on the cloud or if that's an issue. You know, because LHI is neutral to audience. Like it could be a pro bono lawyer, it could be a legal services attorney. You know, but I can connect, because I think it's interesting to understand what is the vision that they have to see what may be the right tool.
Okay, that will be great, Claudia. I appreciate it. Thank you.
No, thank you.
All right, I'm going to. I'm seeing other familiar names. So hi, Lisa. We've been in touch. Anyway, seeing some familiar names logged in. Anyway, on that note, I'm going to drop off. Is that?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thanks for letting me join.
Thanks, Adam.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Okay. So I'm going to post this and Adam's presentation on the folder. And so we're just going to jump to quick announcements. We still are requesting information from and feedback from developers and partners for the evaluation of our work in 2020. We're going to close the Survey Monkeys at the end of March, and would really like to have inclusion from all the states that have been using LHI in the past year. So I'm going to send it again through the list, and I'm going to put it on the chat. But really, please participate. And for those of you who are working with libraries or courts or law schools or have other partners, the partner survey is specifically for people who are not as involved with the projects but may still be using or referring to the form. So that should be, we want to get, you know, feedback from the multiple places where your organization may be the spoke on the wheel in a service delivery. So check that out, and if you can send that out, we would really appreciate it. The other thing is that as of the 11th, when we push code, the end user survey is on the site, and we're gonna bring it down once we get to a size of around 400 to 450. And I'm hoping that that's gonna also be by the end of March. It's getting responses every day, so that's very encouraging. And then the other thing I wanted to show to all of you is the importance of putting e-filing guidance in your interviews, staging pages, or printout checklist. Since the pandemic started, we have seen an increase of people who are so frustrated, sad, about to give up, filing domestic violence orders, custody, child modification, the panels that opened up, you know, after April. And we spend a lot of time going back and forth, because basically what they say is something like this. This person at least told us it was a restraining order petition, but we have over 14 states with those. So we have to say, what state are you in? What form are you trying to do? And we go back and forth on end user support, trying to see if we have a link that then we can send them. This is extremely time consuming for us, and I cannot imagine how much they must be feeling so let down, because they thought they were gonna file a form, do a form and file it, or at least have a place where they would know what to do next, and they're not seeing that. So I'm really calling attention to all of you who are managing and doing projects. This is not a technical issue. This is a guidance and instruction issue. we have technical capacity to deal with that and make it even more seamless to the end user. And I would be happy to sit down with anyone who wants to talk about, you know, some of the things that we did last summer to make it really easy to send those forms to courts or to agencies, or do some minor or major modifications, like if you want to do an XML to XML e-filing directly onto a case management system. We've done that before, we can do it again. So there's all sorts of things that we can do that are ready to use, that we can show you how to do them if you have a developer, or more complex. But just calling attention in the meantime, go with the path of least resistance. And if you can just put in your printout instructions how to e-file, or the link to the where the courts are putting that. I know that some of you may not have access to everything, but you know, at least send people to the right place, because some people keep, you know, it's very sad to see how frustrated some people get because they say they can't call anyone, nobody's picking up the phone at the courthouse, and they're coming to us, and we don't have the information that we need, or if we have it, it's gonna take 5 checkpoints to get it to them, and that's not a good scenario for them. So asking everybody to think about it and reach out. We can help you think through it too. So just call of action kind of thing. The other request is, and this is something that we did in 2019. When you upload a form to LHI, there's a place that says organization. We're asking everybody to be mindful of that field and put the correct organization. So if you're a contractor, put the name of the organization that hired you to do the work. And if you are the legal aid program staff person, make sure that you put the name of your organization, because this is the group that is creating the form, and in March we're gonna pass a code push that is gonna surface the name of the organization to the public. And so we wanna make sure, one, that people know who is providing the service to them, to give credit to the group that does it, and two, that people also know who's behind it, you know, and people may feel more comfortable if they know it's their local legal aid, or you know, their local court, than if it just defaults to LawHelp Interactive, because that's what happens now. Anything that doesn't have something here will default to us, and that's kind of misleading because it's not our form. We don't know anything about the form in terms of process, procedure. So if they're gonna ask us for questions about that, it's just really not straightforward. So as you're working on your collection, take the time to see, is it marked to organization or has it defaulted to LHI? And if it has defaulted to LHI or has the wrong organization, not the legally responsible entity for the form, just make a quick change, and this is in the metadata. Code pushes. I refer to the code that we pushed on the 11th, and it went well. We did administrative updates, server security updates, which we do every month. We fixed an issue where the A2J author logo was getting squished, so that's displaying well now. And we put a limit on the email transmission to 25 megabytes, which is consistent with what other vendors do. So when people are sending an email and they're uploading a document, that can the upload can be 25 megabytes, which is a pretty large file. But after that, the email is not gonna go, and it's in the email your document feature only. It's not assembly. So it's just, you know, just for emailing. And we have a code push in mind. It's gonna be sometime in March, and we will announce the date once we know when we're looking to push. And right now, what we're gonna probably be doing is pushing a local legal server integration with a legal nonprofit that's using LHI to connect from legal server. And we may potentially have some improved error messaging, both for end users and developers. And we are going to push some of the new viewer and that pushes that just went out on the A2J author software. So The next call is gonna be on the 27th, and it's technical, and it's gonna be really going through testing techniques and debugging, focus on LHI interactive interviews. And so this is going to be really helpful. We'll review new developer capacities that we're giving people on the back end so that they can see what's happening with their forms, in case that helps them do QA before they go live. And it's going to be led by Mark and Bart, so I'm really excited about it. I did want to make a note on, I thought I had a slice, but I'm not seeing it. When we did the co-push last week, we retired any A to J author forms that were not retired by the owner. We did that because they were operating on Flash, and these were the A to J author 4 ones. And we were getting hammered on the end inbox, spending time on that rather than helping people with technical issues. And we've been asking, or really messaging on this since like 2019, and the forms were not working. As of October of last year, they were really starting not to work. And by January, there was no way to help people out. So in that vein, to the states that upgraded and did all that, thank you. I know that a lot of you did a lot of forms and work with Michigan and with Jessica, maybe even reached out to us, or we may have emailed you saying, hey, this what's going on with the A to J force. I just want to, again, and Jessica, feel free to chime in, extend support to any of you who want to think through, of the forms that are now retired, which ones would be worth bringing back, how to do them in the most efficient way, and really helping making it easy. It doesn't necessarily have to be a big rigmarole. And I know that we are at LHI willing to support you and think through, look at data, reports, think if you can benefit from the capacities that I mentioned, like Connect or the e-filing, or attaching documents, see if you want to bring that additional capacity to your community and create new partnerships and stuff like that. And Jessica is the national expert on A to J, A to J6, A to J that, and she would also be happy to support you in reviewing any retired ones that may still have had some use, or where that partners are asking, hey, what happened to that form? Because I know that we were getting emails from courts, nonprofits, and pro bono projects that we were forwarding to the owners. So just putting that out there.
Yeah, this is Jessica. A lot of the worry, I guess, initially when we were converting, 5 years ago from A to J4 to the new web-based version, was that it would be a big haul or big overload that's needed. But the actual conversion process takes like 2 minutes, if that, to actually convert it technically from an A to J4, which is Flash-based, into A to J6 now. And so if the content is still good, if the form is still good and active and the law is still solid behind it, the actual conversion process is relatively easy. And I'm happy to do the actual conversion for you if you want, and send you the updated files. And then all it requires is some testing to make sure that everything works like you expect. But really, if you have any A to J4 legacy out there, we'd love to see them continue on rather than die in obscurity now the Flash is gone. So happy to help. I'm just Jessica at cali.org, CALI.org.
Yeah, and thank you, Jessica. Yeah, and we can help you to, troubleshoot once you get it going. If anything comes up, you could email us and we can see what's going on. And if you need to talk to Jessica, we'll share it with her. We work together all the time, so we can figure out how to get it going. But definitely don't feel like, oh, it's gonna be a huge deal, or it could be that it's something pretty minor, because the back end is still good, and maybe just be adding new dates, or something simple like that. I'm going to stop, see if anybody else wants to say or share anything or ask any questions. And Pat, I'll email you directly just to set up something so I can see what is it that the attorneys are looking for. But anybody else?
Hey, Claudia, this is Mark. I've just got a question about A to J4. If somebody never got around to converting their A to J4 interviews, but they don't have a local copy, they've been deleted on LHI, but are they retrievable in some fashion? Do we have an archive somewhere of the old A to
They're
J4?
retired, so they'll show up as retired, and I believe that you can still download them.
Okay.
They're not blocked from being downloaded from the community portal, I don't think.
Yeah.
If they are, if you tell me which one you're looking for, we can pull it for you. We can probably potentially send you a zip file, but they're not deleted. If you look,
Right.
if you do, like if you go to the portal and you look at what's there, it's gonna say retired.
Okay.
The
Cool.
end user, the end user, when the end user hits the form, they get something that says this content is not available.
Right.
But the form is in the portal.
Okay.
So that's all good. You know, the form and whatever attached hot docs interview they had, it's already there.
Great.
Yeah. So it's don't panic. It's we would not delete your work because we know what an investment of time it may have been. You know, and you had probably some federal funding or local state funding that covered that. So hopefully you can reinvest it, refurbish it, use, and reuse. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Well, I do hope that you enjoy Adam's presentation, and I encourage you to check out some of the things I shared. I don't know if anybody wants to share any that they heard about or that they saw that they heard was really good for the team that went or anything like that. And I'm referring to ITC. No? Okay. Well, we can end early. I always like ending early. So thank you all who joined. If anything, if you want to suggest trainings or anything like that, the June call will be non-technical. So shoot me an email. Always happy to cover. I'm hoping that by then we'll have some preliminary analysis on the evaluation that we can share with the community. But help me get that partner survey out, and then if you're a developer, submit your answers for the developer survey. Thank you all. Take care.
Thanks. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye all. Thanks again.